Okay, we're going to be talking about how giant's bones started the legend of the Cyclops, and they weren't giant's bones; they were elephant bones. But if you look at a elephant skull, it's got this hole in there, and that's where the nasal cavity, the base of the proboscis, goes in there. So if you were to look at that, that looks like a really weird skull. So they thought these were cyclopses. And cyclopses were mentioned by Odysseus, and his crew landed on an island in Sicily. And they found they ran into the Cyclops polyphemus, and supposedly they were the children of Poseidon. But let's see how they actually got to this point. So here's an elephant skeleton right here. Now, if you rearrange the bones, you can turn them into a cyclops. So here's our cyclops. How do you get that way? Well, first you get the elephant skull and you put that there. So there's the one-eyed skeleton. And then you get the rib cage and you put that there. And then you get the leg and you turn it into his arm. And then you do the other one. You turn that into an arm, and then you put the pelvis of it and you put him in here, and voila, you went from mammoth bones to a cyclops in one easy step. And they did the same thing. I just did a video on another channel about a griffin. So they got a protoceratops and they turned it into a griffin. So the way they did that, the tail of the griffin, the head goes there, and same thing, it goes on down. So that's how you get from a griffin, from a protoceratops to a griffin. You just rearrange everything different. Bad rearrangements of bones have occurred since from the beginning. The very first dinosaur, now remember, the word dinosaur didn't exist until 1850. The very first one of those giant, what they call dinosaurs, the Bible calls them dragons, and virtually all countries had legends of dragons and monsters. The very first one was the iguanodon, and the iguanodon was pictured with a spike coming out of its nose. It ended up being a thumb bone, and they put it in the wrong place. The same thing with the much vaunted brontosaurus, which has been reclassified as an apatosaurus because they had the wrong skull on the wrong rest of the bones. And they do this all the time, trying to keep their evolution alive, like Lucy, the supposed first proto-human. Part of the skeleton was found 2 miles away and 80 feet down off in a different strata, but they put them together, and amazingly enough, he found the Lucy skeleton on the last day of his excavation before he ran out of money. And so Lucy was a monkey. It never was a proto-human. There are no such things as proto-humans. Pretty much everything in the Bible is true. You can believe all this millions of years ago argument, but even as we speak, there's been 12, the way they classify species of dinosaur, found with unfossilized tissue in them. Look up the work of Mark Armitage and Jack Horner, and they'll tell you. But anyway, it's unfossilized dinosaur bones and dinosaur flesh inside them. And it's not alive or anything, but there's no mechanism by where unfossilized flesh could last 65 million years ago. Well, they can't ever give up to 65 million years ago. Dr. Mary Schweitzer, you can look it up. She's being interviewed on 60 Minutes, and she goes, well, we can't figure out the mechanism which would allow this to happen. They couldn't in their mind think that the bones were actually only thousands of years old at the most. But there's probably still a few in the Congo. There's a swamp in the Congo that's the size of Arkansas. Nobody goes in there. There's probably a couple of small ones there. They call them the Mohili Membe, and there's probably several in the ocean. So anyway, check out unfossilized dinosaur bones and viable T-Rex. Just T-Rex blood cells. They're not viable. They're dead, but they're not something else that invaded it. They were found in these buried forms, and that's why I think the vaunted giant T-Rex skeleton was seized by the FBI of the Dakotas, and it was given to the Chicago National Museum. It was the most complete and the largest T-Rex skeleton ever found. Call it Sue. And I believe the reason it was seized is they didn't want to go into it and find a whole lot of dinosaur gooey fluid biological matter inside the bones. So check that out also. Check out the works of Jack Ham, Kent Hovind, and my friend Trey Smith has great videos on this. He's a professional filmmaker, not just like me walking around with a tablet taking pictures. But anyway, please like, subscribe, and share. I appreciate it. Bye.